A new study on earthquakes has found that massive earthquakes can cause the ground to keep sinking for years, even thousands of kilometres from the epicentre. Nanyang Technological University researchers found that the 2004 Sumatra quake caused gradual land subsidence in Singapore, Malaysia and Thailand. They say the findings could improve sea level projections and flood planning for low-lying coastal cities like Singapore. Nikhil Khattar with more.
The 2004 Sumatra earthquake was one of the most powerful ever recorded. It killed more than 200,000 people and caused billions of dollars in damage. Devastating communities across the region, its tremors were also felt in Singapore. More than 2 decades on, scientists are still uncovering its lasting effects deep beneath the Earth's surface.
A lot of these studies actually focused on regions that are close to the earthquake zones. So there has been quite few studies looking into areas that are further away, and we're talking about regions that are more than 600 kilometers away, like Singapore, Malaysia and Thailand. And a lot of the previous studies, they have very short data sets as well.
The NTU study found that when a massive earthquake strikes, the weak layer of hot rock in the Earth's upper mantle, deep beneath the surface, deforms. That sets off a slow movement that can continue for decades. It causes the land above to keep shifting and sinking, even hundreds of kilometers from the epicentre. The effect is strongest after magnitude 8 earthquakes or larger, with implications for low-lying coastal cities like Singapore.
The deformation that we are seeing is actually gradual over years or even decades. So we shouldn't be immediately alarmed, but rather it should impact the long-term planning that we have so that we will slowly adapt to the potential influence of these land height changes to relative sea level.
Researchers are now working with government agencies to incorporate these findings into future sea level projections.
We are looking at the land height change, but for sea level wise, there's also other factors that we also have to take into account, which some of our research group at NTU is also looking at, which is like extreme storm surges, or we are looking at the tides as well.
NTU researchers say combining these factors will improve future coastal flood modelling and help shape long-term planning, even as earthquakes and tectonic activity remain difficult to predict.
And we are now joined by Dr. Grace Ng. Dr. Ng, we know earthquakes cause damage to the ground, but why does the land continue sinking long after the earthquake is over?
Yeah, so when an earthquake happens, it does not just cause the earth crust to move, it also disturbs the mantle that is beneath it. And also this mantle has a consistency like honey, so it actually flows slowly over time. So therefore, when an earthquake actually happens, this mantle does not immediately move, just like how the crust moves. Instead, it actually gradually flows towards the trench, which is where all the earthquakes occur. And that can last over years or decades. And when all these materials actually move away or shift, it can actually cause the land above it to sink over time as well.
So is there a certain threshold magnitude of earthquake on the Richter scale, perhaps, before we start seeing these long-term effects, or can even moderate quakes cause them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so just to clarify, all these long-term effects are actually there in the background for all regions and for earthquakes, for all earthquakes as well. But the question is how big it is for different locations that we are looking at. So for the regions that are closer to the earthquakes, they naturally observe it more, even with smaller earthquakes. But for regions that are further away, like Singapore, we actually did some tests with our models, and what we found is that earthquakes more than a magnitude of 8 would have more observable effects in the far field than smaller earthquakes with magnitude lesser than 8. Yeah.
So what does this mean for countries like Singapore, where we don't sit on a fault line, but we do feel tremors from time to time?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, Singapore is not near any major plate boundaries, and we also experience tremors or shaking from time to time due to the regional earthquakes nearby. But we don't need to be concerned about the effects of earthquake in the same way as the places that are closer or near the plate boundaries, where they actually experience land height changes in meter scale immediately during an earthquake. So for places that are far away, like Singapore, as what we've mentioned earlier on, the dominant driving mechanism is actually the long-term mental movements. And these mental movements are actually gradual, and the deformation that it caused on the surface is actually in centimeter scale. So yeah, they don't represent any immediate hazard, but they still contribute to relative sea level change. Yeah, and Singapore is also surrounded by seas. So that is something we will definitely have to account for in our future planning as well.
So if the ground itself is slowly shifting, what does that mean for long-term planning in Singapore and the region?
Yeah, in terms of long-term planning in Singapore and the region, it's the same as the adaptation strategies we're taking for the rising sea levels. But the catch is we would have to account for these tectonic effects in the existing local sea level models, which are not yet accounted for, because incorporating tectonics into sea level is still an emerging area globally, and there are also still many conversations on how we can do that properly and accurately as well.
So finally, what should governments and coastal planners start doing differently because of these findings?
Yeah, I think our findings emphasize the importance of our coastal adaptation strategies to rising sea levels, which I know the government is actually well aware of, given the many projects to counter this problem. And they also funded our research as well on sea level impacts. So to reiterate, what should be done differently would be that moving forward, any planning should also take into account the effects from tectonics. And the first step to do that is to incorporate tectonics into our local sea level projection models.
Many thanks for those insights. We've been speaking to Dr. Grace Ng, Research Fellow at the Earth Observatory of Singapore.